The hum of office chatter barely masked the tension in the air. Nadine Carter sat at her desk, fingers flying over the keyboard, the rhythmic tapping grounding her in routine. It was a Monday like any other, until it wasn't. A sharp voice cut through the office noise. "Nadine, can you come to my office, please?" She looked up to see Martin Greer, her department head, standing in the doorway of his glass-walled office. His face was unreadable, but there was something in his tone that made the hairs on the back of her neck rise. A few co-workers cast curious glances her way as she stood, smoothing her gray slacks before making her way across the room. The office was pristine, as always. Sleek furniture, a framed MBA diploma behind the desk, an air of quiet authority. But the moment she stepped inside, she felt the shift. A second figure was already there, seated in one of the leather chairs. Arthur Langley, the company's head of security. He was a broad-shouldered man in his late 40s, with a stiff posture and an expression that made Nadine uneasy. "Close the door," Greer instructed. She did. Then, slowly, she lowered herself into the chair across from them. Greer leaned forward, clasping his hands. "Nadine, something serious has come to our attention." Her stomach twisted. "What's going on?" Langley cleared his throat. "This morning, a financial discrepancy was flagged. A substantial amount of company funds, nearly $25,000, was funneled into an unauthorized account. The transaction was traced back to your login credentials." For a moment, the words didn't make sense. She blinked. "What?" Greer sighed, like this was already exhausting for him. "The evidence is clear. Your employee ID was used to access the system late Friday night. The funds were transferred from a client escrow account." Nadine's mind raced. "That's impossible. I wasn't even here Friday night." Langley pulled out a printed record. "The system logs say otherwise." He placed the paper in front of her. "Your login, your access point." She scanned the sheet. It showed exactly what they said it did. Her credentials, her workstation, the timestamp. But it was wrong. "This isn't right," she said firmly. "I left at 5:30. I even scanned out at security." Greer's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "The problem, Nadine, is that everything points to you." Her pulse pounded. "And you don't think that's suspicious? That someone conveniently used my credentials when I wasn't even here?" Langley exhaled sharply, as if her resistance was an inconvenience. "We'll investigate further. But for now, we have to take action." Her breath caught. "What kind of action?" "You're being placed on administrative leave, effective immediately." Greer's voice was flat. "Security will escort you out." A dull roar filled her ears. "This is a mistake." "Nadine," Greer said, a trace of manufactured sympathy creeping into his voice, "I really hope it is. But until we know for sure, we have to follow protocol." The door opened, and a uniformed security officer stepped in. The sight of him made something inside her tighten. People were going to see this. They were going to see her being led out like a criminal. Her hands curled into fists, nails digging into her palms. "You're making a huge mistake." "We'll be in touch," Langley said, already moving on to whatever came next. She stood slowly, forcing herself to stay composed. The moment she stepped outside, all eyes turned toward her. Conversations stilled. Her co-workers, people she had lunch with, people she'd worked beside for years, watched as she was escorted to her desk to collect her things. Some whispered. Others avoided her gaze entirely. Nadine moved mechanically, grabbing her purse, her phone. As she reached for the framed photo of her daughter, Maya, her hand trembled. The walk to the elevator felt like a death march. When the doors slid shut, trapping her in silence, only then did she let out a shaky breath. The floor dropped from under her. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a setup. The world outside the glass office building was a blur of movement. Cars honking, pedestrians rushing past, the city pulsing with life. But to Nadine Carter, everything felt unnervingly still. She stood outside the entrance, her breath shallow. The crisp autumn air bit at her skin, but she barely noticed. A moment ago, she had been a respected financial analyst, an 8-year veteran at Maxwell and Hyde. Now, she was a pariah, escorted out like a thief. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A text from her sister, Monica. "Everything okay? Heard you left work early." Nadine clenched her jaw. News traveled fast. Before she could type a response, another notification popped up. A voicemail from an unknown number. Her stomach churned as she pressed play. A deep, unfamiliar voice crackled through the speaker. "Miss Carter, this is Assistant District Attorney Evan Whitmore. We need you to come to the downtown precinct for questioning. It would be in your best interest to cooperate." The ground beneath her might as well have disappeared. The interrogation. An hour later, Nadine found herself in a dimly lit interrogation room at the police station. A metal table, a single chair, a two-way mirror reflecting her own tense expression back at her. She had called Monica before she came in, asking her to pick up Maya from school. She didn't want her daughter anywhere near this. The door opened. Evan Whitmore entered, accompanied by a detective with salt and pepper hair and the bored expression of a man who had already made up his mind. Whitmore set down a file and gave her a cool, practiced look. He was in his early 40s, clean-cut, the type of man who carried himself like he belonged in a courtroom and expected everyone to defer to him. "Ms. Carter," he said, taking a seat across from her. "Thank you for coming in." She said nothing. He opened the file, flipping through pages like he was familiar with every detail. "I'm going to be straightforward with you. We have strong evidence linking you to the theft of $25,000 from Maxwell and Hyde's escrow account." She folded her arms. "I didn't do it." Whitmore barely reacted. "Your login credentials were used. The system tracked the transaction back to your workstation. That's enough to charge you with financial fraud and embezzlement." A chill spread through her limbs. "That's ridiculous. I told my employer I wasn't at work when that transaction happened. Check the security footage." I scanned out at the front desk. The detective leaned back. Security cameras had a technical failure that night. No footage. Nadine's stomach clenched. That couldn't be a coincidence. She exhaled slowly. "Then check my personal records. I wasn't anywhere near the office." Whitmore tapped a pen against the table. "Do you have an alibi?" She hesitated. Friday night. What had she been doing? Her mind spun through the details. She had picked up Maya from her after-school program, stopped for groceries, then spent the rest of the evening at home helping her daughter with a book report. She met Whitmore's gaze. "I was at home with my daughter." He arched an eyebrow. "Anyone else there who can verify that?" Her hands curled into fists under the table. "Maya is 10 years old," she said, voice tight. "You're asking if my child is my alibi?" Whitmore gave a slight shrug, feigning nonchalance. "I'm asking if anyone else can confirm where you were." Anger simmered beneath her skin. This wasn't an investigation. This was a setup. "So, let me get this straight," she said, leaning forward. "You have no camera footage, no witnesses, just a system log that could have been accessed by anyone with IT privileges. And that's enough for you to drag me down here?" Whitmore's expression didn't change. "It's enough to open a case." She laughed bitterly. "Would we even be having this conversation if I weren't a black woman?" Something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, maybe. But he masked it quickly. "The law doesn't see race, Miss Carter," she scoffed. "The law might not, but you sure as hell do." Whitmore closed the file and stood. "You should consider getting legal representation." Her pulse pounded. "Am I under arrest?" The detective sighed, pushing away from the table. "Not today." Whitmore gave her a pointed look. but don't leave town. The message was clear. This wasn't over. The weight of it all. By the time Nadine got home, exhaustion pressed down on her like a weight. Maya was curled up on the couch with a book, her dark brown eyes lighting up when she saw her. "Mom!" She ran over, wrapping her arms around Nadine's waist. Nadine clutched her daughter tightly, inhaling the warm, familiar scent of her coconut shea hair cream. Monica emerged from the kitchen, concern etched into her face. "What the hell is going on, Dee?" Nadine sighed, rubbing her temples. "I don't even know where to start." She sank onto the couch, explaining everything. The accusation, the so-called evidence, the interrogation. Monica listened, arms crossed, shaking her head in frustration. "This is bullshit," she muttered. "They're coming after you with nothing." "They don't need something," Nadine said bitterly. "They just need a reason to believe I did it." Monica exhaled sharply. "You need a lawyer." Nadine nodded. "I know." She felt Maya's small hand on her arm. "Mom?" She turned to her daughter, forcing a smile. "Yeah, baby." Maya hesitated. "You didn't do anything bad, right?" Her chest ached. She cupped her daughter's face gently. "Never." Maya studied her, then nodded, as if that was all she needed. But Nadine knew. Children saw more than they let on. That night, when she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the fear sank deeper. They wanted a scapegoat, and they had chosen her. Nadine barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the cold, calculating look in Evan Whitmore's face, the smug indifference of the detective, the way her co-workers had stared at her as she was led out of the office. By morning, exhaustion clung to her like a second skin. But she didn't have time to wallow. She had to act. Securing a defense, Monica had already started making calls before Nadine even got out of bed. "I found someone," she announced over coffee. "Danielle Hayes, criminal defense attorney. She specializes in cases like yours." Nadine rubbed her temples. "Cases like mine?" Monica gave her a pointed look. "Where the system tries to pin something on a black person with no real evidence," Nadine exhaled. "How much is she going to cost?" "She's willing to meet for a free consultation," Monica said. "After that, we'll figure it out." Nadine had never needed a lawyer in her life, but now she was about to step into a battle she had no choice but to fight. The meeting Danielle Hayes' office was small but professional. Modern furniture, framed legal degrees, and a bookshelf lined with cases on wrongful accusations. Danielle herself was a woman in her early 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She listened carefully as Nadine explained everything: her dismissal, the interrogation, the so-called evidence. When Nadine finished, Danielle leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. "They don't have a case," she said flatly. Nadine let out a shaky breath. "Then why are they pushing this so hard?" Danielle's expression darkened. "Because they don't care about proof. They care about conviction rates. The ADA, Evan Whitmore, has a reputation. He loves clean cases. Ones where the accused don't have the resources to fight back." Nadine swallowed. "So what do I do?" Danielle straightened. "First, we demand discovery. I want to see exactly what they have against you. Second, we start building your defense. You said you scanned out of the building on Friday. Do you have access to that record?" Nadine hesitated. "It should be in the security logs." "Then we need to get it before they make it disappear," Danielle said. "And third, we find out who really did this." A chill ran through Nadine. She hadn't even let herself think about that. Someone had set her up. Someone had used her credentials. And that meant someone wanted her to take the fall. The public stigma. By the time Nadine left the law office, her phone was flooded with messages. Some from concerned friends, others less friendly. A text from an unknown number. "Thieves like you give black professionals a bad name. A social media post from a coworker. Sad to see what happened to Nadine. Some people just can't resist temptation. Her chest tightened. The company hadn't even publicly accused her, but the whispers had started. People weren't waiting for the truth. They had already decided she was guilty. Her hands shook as she scrolled through her phone, seeing the subtle coded language in messages. I never thought she'd do something like this. So disappointing. It wasn't about evidence. It was about perception. Nadine fought the urge to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she dialed Monica. "I need to get ahead of this," she said, the moment her sister answered. "What do you mean?" "I need to tell my side before they destroy my reputation." There was a pause. Then Monica sighed. "All right. What do you have in mind?" Speaking out. That night, Nadine sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open, a live video streaming to her small but supportive network. She inhaled deeply before speaking. "Most of you know me. I've worked at Maxwell and Hyde for 8 years. I've built my career from the ground up. But yesterday, I was accused of a crime I didn't commit." She forced herself to stay steady. "I want to make this clear. I am innocent. The accusations against me are based on weak, circumstantial evidence, and instead of investigating properly, they've already decided I'm guilty." She met the camera's gaze. "I refuse to let my name be dragged through the mud. I refuse to be another statistic, another black professional torn down by a system that doesn't care about facts, only narratives." By the time she ended the stream, her hands were shaking. The fight had officially begun. Nadine's video sent ripples through her social and professional circles. Some people voiced their support, while others doubled down on their assumptions. But the real impact came the next morning, when she received a call from Danielle Hayes. "You struck a nerve," the attorney said. Nadine sat up in bed, gripping her phone. "What do you mean?" "The DA's office is moving faster than expected. Whitmore just filed formal charges." Her stomach dropped. "What?" Danielle sighed. "Embezzlement and wire fraud. They're building their case, but that means we're getting closer to seeing what they actually have." Nadine's head swam. "What do we do now?" "Fight back," Danielle said firmly. "I requested the building's security records. If they're as incomplete as they claim, that works in our favor. It proves they don't have concrete evidence." Nadine swallowed hard. "And if they doctored them?" Danielle hesitated. "Then we prove it. A break in the case." Later that day, Nadine sat at Danielle's office, staring at the security logs. As expected, there was no footage from Friday night, only a written log of keycard scans. Danielle ran a finger down the printout. "See here? Your ID was used at 9:47 p.m. to access your workstation." Nadine shook her head. "I was home by then." Danielle leaned back. "That means one of two things. Either someone cloned your keycard, or someone with administrative access manipulated the system." Nadine's mind whirred. There were only a few people in IT with that kind of access. But who would have the motive? Then, a name surfaced in her mind. Ram Pierce. He was the senior IT manager, someone she had worked with before. More importantly, she remembered an interaction from a few weeks ago. He had been frustrated with a rejected budget request for new server upgrades. She had been on the finance team that denied it. That have been enough of a motive? Danielle tapped her pen against the table. "We need proof. Someone inside that company knows the truth." A courageous ally. The next evening, Nadine received a message from an unexpected number. "Unknown. I know what happened. Meet me at Cafe Luna, 8 p.m. Come alone." She stared at the screen, heart pounding. Danielle had warned her to be careful, but if someone was willing to talk, she couldn't ignore it. That night, she arrived at the dimly lit cafe, scanning the room. A young woman with auburn curls sat in the corner, eyes darting nervously. Nadine approached. You messaged me. The woman nodded. I don't have much time. My name is Aaron. I work in IT. Nadine's breath caught. I saw something, Aaron whispered. Friday night. Graham Pierce was in the server room after hours. He had the admin dashboard open. Nadine's pulse pounded. Are you saying he tampered with the system? Aaron swallowed. I think so, but I can't prove it. Not yet. Nadine leaned in. If you can get something, anything, I can fight this. Aaron hesitated, then nodded. I'll try. Hope sparked in Nadine's chest for the first time in days. The truth was within reach. The smoking gun. 2 days later, Aaron came through. Nadine's phone buzzed with a text. Aaron, meet me at the park. I have something. Minutes later, Nadine sat on a secluded bench, watching as Aaron approached, clutching a flash drive like it was burning her fingers. I got into the system logs, Aaron whispered, handing it over. Pierce deleted access records and altered timestamps. Your ID was used, but it was him who authorized the login from an override account. Nadine's breath hitched. You're sure? Aaron nodded. I also found an email chain. Whitmore and Pierce talked before the charges were even filed. Nadine's stomach twisted. So this was coordinated? Looks like Whitmore wanted a clean case, Aaron said bitterly. Pierce saw an opportunity to cover his tracks, and you were the perfect scapegoat. Nadine clutched the flash drive. This is it. This proves everything. The courtroom showdown. Danielle wasted no time. Armed with the new evidence, she filed a motion to dismiss the case, forcing an emergency hearing. Whitmore stood across from them in the courtroom, his confidence visibly shaken as Danielle laid out the evidence. Your Honor, this case is built on fabricated evidence, Danielle stated, handing the judge the documents. The real perpetrator, Graham Pierce, manipulated system logs to frame my client. We have undeniable proof that Assistant District Attorney Evan Whitmore pursued these charges despite glaring inconsistencies. The judge reviewed the files, then turned to Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore, do you care to explain why this evidence was not disclosed to the defense? Whitmore cleared his throat. Your Honor, Enough. The judge's voice cut through the room like a blade. This case is dismissed. Ms. Carter, you are free to go. Relief crashed over Nadine, but it wasn't over. The reckoning. The fallout was swift. Graham Pierce was arrested on fraud charges. Internal investigators uncovered more financial misdeeds linked to him, including past cover-ups. As for Whitmore, his career crumbled overnight. A formal inquiry into prosecutorial misconduct followed, and his reputation was forever tarnished. Nadine stood outside the courthouse, inhaling the crisp air, feeling the weight of injustice finally lifting. She wasn't just free. She had won, reclaiming her name. The next week, she sat in front of a camera, streaming live once more. I fought back, she said, voice steady. Not just for me, but for everyone who has been falsely accused and left to fend for themselves. The system tried to break me. It failed. Messages flooded in. Support, admiration, validation. She had lost her job, her sense of security, but she had reclaimed something more important, her dignity. And no one would take that from her again.